Hey everyone, Battlefront 2 has been popping off lately, so let's talk about it. I've recently delved back into the game for a bit myself, so I'll discuss my time with it and why I'll probably not be jumping back into it anytime soon. But don't worry, this isn't a negative video. I've got my issues with the game that we will get into in a little bit, but this resurgence in players is still awesome to see. There's big accounts jumping on board when it comes to Battlefront 3, like the EA Sports Instagram posting a joke about Battlefront 3 on their story, and my buddies have been telling me that Battlefront 3 is just popping up in comment sections on TikTok and other platforms, even if the content isn't Star Wars related, which just goes to really show that the audience for the Battlefront franchise is absolutely still there. From the leaks, it looks like Battlefront 2 has over 300,000 concurrent players across all platforms, and this number could be higher by the time you're seeing my video, but that's pretty bonkers. I will also share the Steam concurrent player count, which keep in mind this is the least played platform, with Xbox, PlayStation, EA Play being the big hitters, but it is at least factual data. On Steam right now, at the time of this video, the peak concurrent is sitting at just over 18,000 people. Now, when I began playing it the other day, this number was sitting at around 6,000. So it's already tripled on Steam. That being said, this pattern probably followed through on other platforms. For a game almost a decade old, this is pretty much unheard of. Now, as for why this resurgence is happening, we don't really know. If I had to guess, with it being May, we just had the Revenge of the Sith 20th anniversary, and not to date myself, but I remember going to that as a kid in theaters with my dad when I was 8, and we actually went the other day for the anniversary event, which was awesome to see. I mean, episode 3, that's peak cinema. That's, in my opinion, all right, the best Star Wars film to date, okay? Now, you guys can disagree, that's fine, but that's where I'm at on it. But anyways, we're getting off track now, so let's jump back. So the Revenge of the Sith anniversary, Andor Season 2, which is doing very well right now, I believe, which I've yet to see, so let me know if I need to go give that a watch. But given those, and the fact that the market is clearly hungry for more of not only Star Wars content, but large-scale multiplayer PvP, it makes complete sense why this game is skyrocketing in player count. And the game looks great and feels good to play. The gameplay is really solid, it's just the progression that's really terrible right now. I want Battlefront 3 as much as the next guy, so obviously I'm in full support of this resurgence, and I'm glad Battlefront 2 is popping off right now. I've even seen some of my more, lack for a better term here, normie friends pop online. These are people that don't play video games or haven't played video games in a very long time, and when they are playing, it's some kind of sports game. No offense, sports fans, but you're probably not watching this video anyways. What I really want to talk about is the future of this franchise, because to me, that's the more interesting piece. I remember when this game initially came out and how much fun I had playing it. But what turned me off back then, and what turned me off the other day when I sat down and played it again after almost a decade, is of course the progression system. Essentially, the items in the game that make your character powerful are called star cards. These star cards take an obnoxious amount of time to unlock, and that's because this game was built from the ground up with one key feature in mind: loot boxes. So the original idea for this game that you bought with your hard-earned cash was that you would get upset at how inconvenient it is to obtain these star cards and give in to these loot boxes and buy them to try and obtain some more star cards. Now, of course, we all know how that was received. Everyone hated it, and DICE ended up removing the ability to purchase these loot boxes. So that's good, at least they did that. You don't normally see that in the gaming industry. But with a brand like Star Wars, one where a massive chunk of its audience is kids, well, gambling on loot boxes and kids is not the best look. So these were removed, but what that left was a game that is incredibly grindy because they purposely made it inconvenient to play so that you would buy these loot boxes. So that's essentially why I won't be jumping back into the game. When a game begins to feel like a chore, I tend to hit the uninstall button. Now, that's not the only reason I'm not jumping back in the game. The other is the fact that the game isn't crossplay. So me playing on PC could not play with my buddies who own it on Xbox. Now, if they were to ever get it on PC, I would probably reinstall it and jump and play with them because it's fun to play with friends. But that's also not this game's fault. This game was released just before the whole crossplay and cross-progression wave came through. But that leads me to my next segment, which is what the future of this franchise looks like. So one of the former Star Wars Battlefront 2 devs shared their plan. Now, again, this probably isn't going to happen, but if we want to remain cautiously optimistic, let's see what they had to say. Their plan would be remaster Battlefront 2 with improvements for next-gen hardware coming around 2027, 2028, and then use that knowledge to craft Battlefront 3. There's also mentioned that a lot of these devs that worked on Battlefront 2, most of which are no longer with DICE or EA, want to come back and work on this. Now, I think this idea is very sound. I actually like it a lot. Remaster Battlefront 2 and fix mainly the progression system, which just make it less grindy. Honestly, just make the star cards less grindy. When I played via PC Game Pass the other day, I had pretty much all the cosmetics unlocked, which was awesome, but the star cards are the issue. Honestly, just flip it. I think most people will have no issues grinding out character skins, just make obtaining the star cards less grindy. Cosmetics alone are a good enough motivator to keep the player base engaged. You get to show off how much you play and how good you are at the game, and it doesn't affect the balance of the game at all like star cards currently do. But this dev's plan to remaster Battlefront 2 and then use that knowledge there to develop Battlefront 3 is solid in my opinion. It's very similar to what Gears is doing. They're remastering the OG Gears, and this will not only help them future-proof Gears of War E-Day, but also help onboard new people to the world of Gears, such as PlayStation fanbase, and it will also help them test their cross-play and cross-progression systems, as those will likely be in the game. And it will absolutely help them speed up the development of E-Day, because they can do the remaster again to test future systems. Which, by the way, I will be covering Gears of War Reloaded in a separate video. I'm actually working on that behind the scenes right now. That'll be out here soon. And I'm also following Gears of War E-Day, so if you guys want to stick around for that one, be sure to subscribe. So I'm on board for this idea from the X-Dice dev. Obviously, it would be nice for them to let people who've already purchased Battlefront 2 own the remaster right away, like what Gears is doing. But I can admit for EA that that's a stretch, even on top of this already massive stretch, that this dev's idea will ever come to fruition. I don't expect EA to suddenly greenlight a Battlefront 2 remaster tomorrow. The Star Wars license is incredibly expensive, and a lot would need to happen behind the scenes for this to actually happen, and that's going to cost a lot of money and a lot of time. But this community has shown time and again that they care. Their player count surge, the social media buzz, the return of long-lost gamers, shout out Dookie Butter, I saw you pop online. It all sends a message. There's still life in this franchise, and if EA is seeing everything online, which I'm sure they are, that message is pretty clear. Star Wars multiplayer isn't dead, and people are hungry for more Battlefront. So while I'm not holding my breath on this, I'll be keeping an eye on it and update you guys with anything new that comes out. So please subscribe if you want to follow along and see any of that. Most of you guys actually aren't subscribed. It's fine. I don't really care. So that's where I'm at. Battlefront 2 is having a moment right now, and it absolutely deserves to be celebrated. But we also have to remember what went wrong, what still needs to be fixed, and how we could do it better next time. Let me know in the comments. Have you jumped back into Battlefront 2 recently? What was your experience like? And what would you want to see for a potential remaster or even Battlefront 3? As always, thanks for watching. Take excellent care of yourselves. Call someone you love. And goodbye.